safety. In this series, we're going to make 2 types of hot process soap. Soap making, while not difficult, requires some extra precautions and reminders for working with caustic sodium or potassium hydroxide. Most companies will not ship potassium and sodium hydroxide, so please make sure that you can source them locally. So here we have sodium hydroxide. When I started making soap in my 20s, I didn't understand why there was so much fuss about, needing to wear goggles and needing to wear gloves and wearing long sleeves. I mean, part of my issue was at the time I worked with far more dangerous chemicals. And in school, we used sodium and potassium hydroxide in our experiments. So I'd been using them since I was a teenager. So I automatically developed really good habits. But when you're working with it at home, it's always good to have a really good reminder about what these chemicals are capable of doing. So both sodium and potassium hydroxide are caustic chemicals. They're hygroscopic, meaning that they will absorb moisture from wherever they can take it. So from the air, if you're breathing it in, it'll take it from your lungs, take it from your skin. So that's why it's really important to be completely covered and to work in a place with good ventilation, because the fumes can come off, and again, the fumes mixed with the water can also go into your lungs and cause a lot of damage. So make sure you have a really good ventilation. So yeah, the absorption process is delicescence, and it's a really great reason to cover up your skin. If you don't have good ventilation, wearing a mask is something that might help. You don't want to inhale the caustic vapors. It is quite dangerous. So what we're going to do is we're going to measure out 10 grams of sodium hydroxide. So that's about there. And I'm going to measure out about 25 grams of water. There we go. Close that up. And so when we take the temperature of our water, you can see that it's around 20-25 degrees Celsius. When we add the sodium hydroxide to it, and I can't stress enough, always, always, always add the lye to the water. Don't do it the other way around. So we add our sodium hydroxide. So we'll just give that a quick mix. And what you'll notice is you can see condensation. Keep that away. And what you'll also see is an increase in temperature. So before we had about 25, and now we're up around, probably around 50. So it generates a lot of heat. So one of the things you're not supposed to do is put hydroxide into glass. The problem is that when we add it to the glass, we can put our concentrated solution in here. It looks perfectly fine, right? It doesn't look like anything's happening. But what is happening is that the sodium hydroxide actually is reacting with the glass. And so it's creating micro pits. The first time it might be fine. Second time might be fine. The third time the glass might explode because of the heat from the reaction and because it's damaged the integrity of the glass. So every time you use glass, please, please, please be careful. The other thing you don't want to do is use aluminum. People use aluminum pots and aluminum utensils. Please be very, very careful if you do, because this is what happens when we add aluminum, or when we add a concentrated sodium hydroxide solution to aluminum. Just make a little well. So our solution stays. You can hear the hissing. That's hydrogen being released from the reaction. Can you see the bubbles? Got some nasty bubbling going on. And so yeah, make sure it's done in a well-ventilated area. You can see it's already eaten away the aluminum. So yes, this is why we don't use aluminum when we're making caustics, and that goes for utensils or pots. So please don't use that. One of the things I said not to do was add water to your caustics. This is why. And so we're going to use potassium hydroxide. We use about 50 grams of potassium hydroxide. So there we go, about 50 grams. And now we're going to add some water to it. And you can hear the sizzle, and you can see the bubbling. And so this is only 50 grams. If you're making soap, you're probably using 500 grams. So if you do this, like, you can see how violent that is with only 50 grams. Can you imagine with 500 grams? So always, always, always go the other way. Add the caustic to the water, not the water to the caustic. So we talked about you can't use glass, you can't use aluminum. So what can you use? So believe it or not, you can use polypropylene plastic. It is the number 5 on the recycling number. The other one you can use is polyethylene plastic. It's number 2 with the recycling number. And most importantly, you can use stainless steel. The more expensive pots are stainless steel, so you can use those to cook your soap. If you're cooking soap in a crock pot, the enamel covering, it works beautifully. If you're making hot process soap, enamel is a really good way to go. Caustic chemicals can cause serious burns. If you get any on yourself or spill any anywhere, make sure you flush the area with cold water. Make sure you quench the burn and don't put any acid solutions on it. I've seen that recommended. Please don't. You've already burnt yourself, so you're going to put more burning on it. I don't think so. Just flush with water, please. That's the best you can do. And so some people, they recommend using wooden spoons, but you saw what the caustics can do, so they will break down the wooden spoons, which may fall into your soap. If it's a good quality spoon with a good lacquer on it, it might be okay to use it, especially with thick soap, but I still err on the side of caution and use a silicone spatula. So again, for a quick safety recap, work in a well-ventilated area or wear a mask just to keep the fumes down so you don't inhale and burn your lungs. Wear proper personal protective equipment, long sleeve, safety glasses, and gloves when working with caustic solutions. And always add, again, I can't say this enough, add the lye to the water. The reaction is exothermic and releases a significant amount of heat that can cause burns, it can break glass. Lye will dissolve aluminum to produce hydrogen gas, which is explosive. So don't use aluminum. Always use stainless steel or enamel pots to cook soap in. And if you're using utensils, silicone is great. So again, stainless steel are the best options. You can mix lye in high density polyethylene or polypropylene containers and using stainless steel utensils whenever possible. So enjoy making soap, have a good time, but please be safe. Thanks.